This video is big news. I've created a type of frosting called Cream Cheese Buttercream. It takes the flavor of cream cheese frosting, the texture of buttercream, mashes them together, and it is incredible. Hi everyone, I'm Claire Saffitz. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today I'm making an evergreen baking recipe. It's carrot cupcakes. I'm gonna show you an easy carrot cake base, but really this recipe is all about the frosting, which I'm really proud of. I feel like it's something that I innovated. It is a cream cheese buttercream. None of that droopy, soft cream cheese frosting. This is like a beautiful, voluminous buttercream where I can get a nice swoosh on the cupcake and it tastes just like cream cheese frosting. First of all, I just feel like carrot cake in general is like so many people's favorite layer cake, and for good reason. It's always really moist. It has those nice warm spices in it, so it's kind of universally appealing. But a layer cake is a lot, and cupcakes, it's like summertime, people are going to picnics and different events. These are easy things you can take with you, and you don't have to do the whole elaborate construction of a layer cake. If you do want to do that, check out my episode where I make the carrot cake from Dessert Person. The cream cheese buttercream is the frosting of my dreams. I want all frosting to taste like cream cheese frosting because I love how tangy it is, but there can really be issues with the texture because it is a soft frosting, and the more you beat it, the softer it gets, and it can get really droopy, and it's not actually great for creating like volume or piping it. It's also not temperature stable. So this is a buttercream that is temperature stable, so you could bring it outdoors if you wanted to during the summer, and you're gonna get great volume, and it's super fluffy, and it is maybe the perfect frosting. I mean, from what I could find on the internet, this doesn't really exist, and it's my way of taking the flavor of cream cheese frosting and the textural advantages of buttercream and smushing them together. So I got a lot out here, but it's all pretty straightforward. For the cake, I have carrots, of course, some neutral oil, this is vegetable, granulated sugar, brown sugar, all-purpose flour, 2 large eggs. I have some pecans, you could use walnut or any other nut. Some warm spice, I have cinnamon, allspice, and literally just a pinch of clove, kosher salt, baking soda. For the buttercream, I have 2 sticks unsalted butter cut into pieces, cream of tartar, I'm gonna add just a pinch, a little bit of kosher salt, egg whites, vanilla paste, you could use extract. I have sugar, of course, for the buttercream. And then over here, I have this weird looking substance. This is cream cheese that I've pressed. We're gonna talk more about this. This is really important. For special equipment, I have a stand mixer. I'm gonna use that both for the cake and for the buttercream. You don't really need a stand mixer to make the cake, but I'm gonna use it anyway, so I might as well. You could do it by hand or use a hand mixer. Behind me, I also have my muffin tin with 12 muffin liners. I have a scoop, which is useful for portioning. You don't really have to have that. And then I have a box grater for doing the carrots. You'll need a saucepan to make the double boiler. Lastly, I have my favorite tool in the whole world, a small offset spatula, which is the tool for giving a nice frosted swirl over all of our cupcakes. Before I get into the recipe, I want to thank our friends at Gestora for sponsoring the episode. Gestora is a design company founded by cooks. They create tools for home cooks and chefs alike. They're antique-inspired products manufactured in collaboration with multi-generational factories in Japan. They make a line of thoughtful products. You can see they have a tweezer, a cake tester. One of my favorites is their spoon. It's sized to be a perfect tablespoon. It has a tapered end, which makes it really easy to pour. I love the feel of a handle. They're just such elegant products, and I really love using them in the kitchen. So their most recent product is what I'm really excited about. It is the Essa Offset Spatula. If you've ever watched an episode of Dessert Person, you know how passionate I am about a small offset spatula, and theirs is so beautiful. This one is inspired by Japanese knives. It has a geometric oak handle, 2 rivets, a single piece of stainless steel. This is perfect for all the pastry things that I love to do, like frosting a cake. It's also designed to be a hybrid of an offset spatula and a fish spatula, so it's great for doing savory things in the kitchen too, like flipping a piece of fish. To learn more about Gestora products and to get free shipping, check out the link in the description below. Now back to the recipe. So the first step you want to do is preheat your oven. Mine's already on 350. I have my muffin tin ready. The batter comes together really fast. So the first step to prep is carrots. So I'm going to shred these. I need a cup and a half. So I'm doing 12 cupcakes. It's not like a huge volume of batter. So I need a cup and a half of carrots. And the key for me to a successful carrot cake is many things actually, but one of them is like appropriate carrot shred size. I shred these on the large holes of the box grater. and then I chop them up. So I just want to show you how I do that, and I'll explain why. You know, cupcakes bake in what, like 15 minutes in the oven. So it's really not enough time for the carrots to actually soften. They kind of just hydrate and soften on their own in the batter, but I like to chop up the shreds because the shreds can be kind of big, especially in cupcake form where the cakes themselves are small. It's just better to chop them up. It creates more surface area on the carrots. It means that they distribute more easily, and more surface area means more flavor. I think that's an important step. You could shred them on the smaller holes, but I like the kind of dimensions that the carrots get on the large holes and then a chop. They don't become as like stringy. Watch your fingertips and your knuckles. Should be about a half a pound of carrots, about twice that. This should get me to a cup and a half. And you don't really want to pack it down too much, but you also just want to make sure that you're accurately gauging the volume. All right, that looks good. A little left over. I'm gonna push my carrots to the side, and then I'm just gonna give a rough chop to my pecans. I have a half a cup of pecans. Again, you could use any nut that you like. My mom's original recipe calls for walnuts. I just had pecans. So this recipe is based on my mom's carrot cake recipe, which she makes out of this really old community cookbook that she has. She has two of them from the Cleveland Orchestra because my parents, I guess in their 20s, lived in Cleveland. One is called Bach's Lunch. Bach, like the composer, B-A-C-H. And then the second one is called Bach for More. And I'm not sure which one it comes from. She has little handwritten notes in the margins, and the note just says like, this recipe has too much oil. But it's like, maybe tell us what the right amount of oil is instead of just being like, this is wrong. So this is very, very close to that recipe, just a couple of tiny little changes, like I added a pinch of clove, I added a little salt, I decreased the oil and sugar a little bit. Okay, so those are the pecans, and I'm gonna start to make the batter. The next thing I'm gonna do is just combine my dry ingredients. So I have a cup of all-purpose flour. No need to use cake flour in this instance. Carrot cake is pretty sturdy and pretty moist. Then I'm adding a teaspoon of baking soda, a half teaspoon of kosher salt, and then my spices. It's a half teaspoon cinnamon, I think a quarter teaspoon allspice, and a pinch of ground clove. I love ground clove. It is like that quintessential winter baking spice, but it's really strong. So truly a pinch. I'm just gonna combine all of this. I have my stand mixer here. I have the whisk attachment on, but I also have the paddle because I'm gonna switch to that. I'm gonna start by combining my oil, my sugars. I have brown and granulated sugars. That was also a change to the recipe. It just originally called for only granulated. So it's like the changes that I'm making are not significant. I'm gonna put my sugars in. And my eggs. So I have 2 large eggs. These are room temp. Room temp is like less important when it's not a butter-based cake, but room temp is still better. So I'm gonna turn this on. I'm gonna start on low, medium, low until the eggs are broken up, and then I'm gonna increase the speed to medium, then medium high. I want this mixture to get really light and fluffy and voluminous and just whip up. So a couple of minutes later, I have this nice ribbony mixture, so it's thick and light. It's gotten kind of pale. Now I'm gonna add my carrots. So this is when I'm gonna switch from the whisk to the paddle because I need the whisk to really whip that mixture, but all the carrots will get trapped in the wires of the whisk. So paddle goes on. I'm gonna need this later for my buttercream. So now I'm gonna add my carrots on low speed. Then I'm gonna add about 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Then I'm gonna slowly add my dry ingredients, that flour mixture. You can see this is really easy. Oh, there's a little pocket of spices down there. So I'm gonna take it out of the stand mixer. I'm also gonna use the paddle again for the buttercream. I always undermix in the stand mixer. I mean, carrot cake is not really a cake that's prone to like getting tough because you've overmixed it. It's a very moist cake, but I always err on the side of less mixing in the mixer, and then I can finish by hand. So I'm gonna add my pecans. Those go right in, and then I'm gonna fold it, and I'm gonna really focus on scraping the bottom and sides. So if there's any unincorporated flour or like unincorporated egg mixture, I'll get it well combined. That looks good. Oven's on 350. I'm gonna now portion my cupcakes. This makes 12. So generally when you're portioning muffins or cupcakes, whatever it is, you don't wanna fill more than like 2/3. So that's pretty much 1 scoop. If you don't have a scoop, you can just use a couple spoons, but you can also use like a 1/3 cup measure to help you do it uniformly. So this is actually a half quantity of batter of my mom's original carrot cake recipe because that's a layer cake. I have like 1 tablespoon of batter left, but I don't want to overfill them. They're gonna bake for about 15 minutes or so, and I'm gonna look for the tops of the cupcakes to be domed, springy to the touch, and just to be safe, I'll use my cake tester to make sure they're cooked all the way through. With carrot cake, sometimes under baking is easy. So at 19 minutes, they smell done, and they look done, but I'm gonna use my cake tester just to make sure. Tops are golden brown, they smell delicious. Nice, came out perfectly clean. I'm just gonna set them aside to cool over here. We're done with the oven, and now I'm gonna turn to my soon-to-be world famous cream cheese buttercream. We need to talk about cream cheese first. At first, when I was developing this recipe, I thought to myself, why can't you just replace some of the butter and buttercream with cream cheese? And I tried it. And it created a buttercream that was kind of loose. It wasn't really smooth. It wasn't exactly broken. It had a weird, like whipped, like overly fluffy texture. And it wasn't what I wanted. It didn't really hold its shape. You couldn't pipe it. So I had to sort of take a step back and figure out what's going on. What quickly sort of made sense to me was that cream cheese and butter are not that similar. Butter has a water content of like 15 to 20% on average. Cream cheese has a water content of like 60% or something high. I can't remember what it is exactly. I had to figure out a way to remove water from cream cheese. Now the problem with a lot of commercially made cream cheese is that it has a lot of stabilizers in it. It has substances like guar gum or carrot bean gum that the entire purpose is to prevent water from coming out. So if you try to remove water from cream cheese with stabilizers, you can't really. That's the whole point. I then had to turn to more natural cream cheeses that had cultures and cream and milk in it, but nothing else, so no stabilizers. The point of this is that if you want to make this recipe, you have to look for a brand that doesn't have stabilizer. Usually it will be labeled cream cheese spread, but check the label. You don't want whipped cream cheese because that has even more stabilizers in it. You just want something that comes in a tub where when you read the label, it's just cream and milk and cultures and that's it, and maybe salt, no stabilizer. So that's what I have here. What I have done is I have pressed it. See how it's cracked right there and it looks really dry? So the idea here is to draw water out of the cream cheese, thus increasing the fat content and making it so it will behave more like butter in the buttercream. So I want to weigh this. I know that there were 7 ounces before I pressed it. Let's see how much moisture loss there's been. I'm looking for this to have lost at least 2.5 to 3 ounces of water. 5 ounces. 2 ounces it lost. I think that'll be fine. I know if I were starting at 8 ounces, I wanted there to be about 3 ounces of water loss, but starting at 7 ounces, we'll go with 2. I've been pressing this for a couple hours at room temp. You want it to be room temp for the recipe. You could even have it just go overnight if you needed to. This is gonna go in here, and I'm gonna turn the paddle on. It looks like cheese. So it looks very dry because that outer layer is especially dehydrated, but it will smooth out. So I'm gonna basically add to this the butter, but a little bit at a time. I probably could throw it in, but I just wanna make sure that I form this nice, smooth emulsion. So I wanna just incorporate the butter slowly. I mean, not that slowly, but. So I've added about half the butter and it's coming together really nicely. I wanna scrape down the sides just to make sure everything's incorporated. So I'm just gonna keep adding the butter till it's all in there. And once it's well mixed and you can see that you have this smooth mixture, you can kind of just add the rest of the butter pretty quickly. So I just wanna mix this until everything is smooth. And that's why you want your cream cheese to be room temperature, because if it's not gonna really incorporate with the butter easily. And you don't need to whip this. Everything just has to be well combined. So this is the texture. It's not really fluffy, but I don't need it to be. It's just smooth and combined. So I'm gonna actually scrape this out into a separate bowl, but I really need to thoroughly clean the bowl because I wanna remove all the fat residue, because now I'm gonna whip my egg whites in it. And if you have any fat in the bowl, then it's gonna inhibit the egg whites. So I'm gonna get this out into something else. I just realized something. I halved my cake recipe, but I didn't have my buttercream. So we're just gonna have a lot of buttercream, but this is another huge advantage of this recipe. Unlike cream cheese frosting, which you cannot freeze because it just turns it like to liquid, you can freeze this. I'm gonna use the paddle again, but I don't need it to be clean. So I'm gonna set the butter and the paddle aside and clean the bowl. Okay, so I have a new spatula, no fat on this one. I'm gonna combine my egg whites. This is 120 grams of egg whites. It's really like 4 large egg whites. 4 to 5. Make sure the bowl's really clean. My sugar, so a full cup of sugar. Gonna add my ½ teaspoon of kosher salt. There's already salt in the cream cheese, but I wanna add a little bit more. And then I'm gonna add just the littlest pinch of cream of tartar, which is an acid, and that helps to stabilize the egg whites. So I'm gonna bring this over to the stove. I have maybe 1 inch of water in the bottom of the saucepan. It's steaming. I'm gonna turn that heat down so it's just kind of like barely simmering on low, medium, low. And we're just gonna cook this mixture, not really cook it, but warm it. And I'm gonna stir it. And I'll show you how to know when you're at that point when the sugar is dissolved. I have it on medium high. I'm gonna turn it down. It's kind of barely simmering. So after maybe 5 minutes of stirring, and you do want to constantly be moving it around because you don't want to sort of cook the mixture, but if you are concerned about pasteurization and food safety, you can use an instant read thermometer to guarantee that you're hitting 160 Fahrenheit to pasteurize the eggs. After several minutes of stirring, I know that it's done because I don't see any visible granules of sugar on the sides of the bowl. The mixture is really fluid, and in the bowl it's opaque. So those are all signs that the sugar is dissolved. When you're looking at the mixture, it's easy to mistake that there's undissolved sugar in it because there's tiny little air bubbles everywhere. And you might think that that's what the sugar is, but the best way to tell is actually to take a little bit of the mixture, like a dab of it, on your fingertips and rub it together. And if you feel no grit, then you know you're good. This is grit-free, and I'm ready to now put it into my stand mixer. So if you do feel grit, like you feel little undissolved bits of sugar, just put it back on the double boiler and keep stirring. This goes in, my whisk goes on. The next step is to whip this into a really nice, beautiful, dense, voluminous meringue. That'll take a couple of minutes, and I just want to whip, well, I want to whip until I have nice firm peaks, and I'll also just sort of keep my hand on the bowl and make sure that the bowl is room temp. It's already like cooled quite a bit, so I'm not worried about that. I'm gonna start on kind of medium, then I can increase to medium high and then high. Here I have my meringue. This is how I know it's done. This firm peak, see how it stands straight up? And it's like super thick and glossy and white and opaque and dense. The bowl is cool to the touch, so now I'm ready to start incorporating that mixture of cream cheese and butter. So I'm gonna keep the whisk on there. I'm gonna start by adding the butter cream cheese mixture a tablespoon at a time with the mixer on medium high. Once I've added about half of this mixture, I'm gonna switch to the paddle. I'm gonna switch to the paddle. If anything looks amiss making buttercream, just trust the process and keep mixing. So that's what I'm gonna do, but with the paddle. And while I have the opportunity, I'm just gonna give the bowl a good scrape. So I switched to the paddle. It's coming back together and starting to look really fluffy. I'm gonna add the rest of that butter cream cheese mixture, and then I'm gonna let it go just on medium high with the paddle until it looks like super smooth and fluffy. Buttercream looks so good. It came back together. All of the cream cheese and butter is incorporated, and it is fluffy and smooth and silky. So look at the volume of this versus like a cream cheese frosting, which is so droopy. This holds its shape perfectly. The last thing is just to add some vanilla. I'm adding paste. You could do scrapings from a bean. You could just do extract, but I love paste. Kind of get best of all worlds. I'm gonna add about 1.5 teaspoons. I'm gonna do it with my Just Stir a spoon, which has that nice little pour feature off the end. So this has a tablespoon capacity, so I'm gonna about half fill it. And also, before I actually mix that in, I will give the bowl a nice scrape. Even mixing is really important.
Do you think you'll get a Pulitzer Prize for this?
Pulitzer,
I hope
Nobel?
so. Can I get a James Beard Award?
No.
Those are a little hard to get.
Apparently. Vince has 2. I was nominated, but I lost last year. Okay. This is done. Buttercream takes a little bit of time. It's like a lot more intense than just mixing together some powdered sugar and butter in a mixing bowl, but it's so worth it for the results, especially this one. Just remember, if you want to make this, have the foresight to press your cream cheese. Oh my gosh, it looks so good. I'm so excited to taste it. This is, I think, so much superior to regular vanilla buttercream because it has a tang of cream cheese frosting and it doesn't just taste like butter, which to me is kind of what vanilla buttercream will always taste like. And you know, you have to add some other ingredient that's really going to bring a strong flavor to it for it to taste like anything. And I don't want to just feel like I'm eating butter. So my cupcakes have cooled, which is great. I'm going to bring them over, clean up for a second, and then we'll get to frosting. This is the most fun part of this whole process, which is frosting the cupcakes. There's all sorts of different styles. You could absolutely pipe this with a pastry tip, like a star tip, to make a swirl. It would pipe so beautifully, but I'm just gonna go kind of natural with it and use my small offset spatula to kind of make some nice swirls. And one, I think, really sort of great trick for cupcakes is to actually use a scoop, just like we used a scoop to portion the batter. Use a scoop to portion the frosting, and then you can kind of go in, and it just helps to have uniformity between all your cupcakes. See how it holds its shape? Something that you just don't get with like a cream cheese frosting. But you can't have carrot cake without cream cheese frosting, so this is where we are. It really is a testament to how much I like cream cheese frosting that I came up with this whole recipe and technique. I'd make kind of a double batch for this amount of cake, so this can go into the freezer. And now I'm just gonna do that final step with my small offset spatula of like smoothing it and swirling it and bringing it around the edges to kind of make this nice, cute little hat for the cupcake. You know, Magnolia Bakery in New York is kind of responsible for like the cupcake craze of the 2000s. I really like their style of frosting, which has become kind of popular. So you just kind of smooth it across the top in like a nice dome and then make a little swirl at the top. It's usually easier to like take away than it is to add. If you don't want this much frosting on your cupcakes, you can always sort of scrape a little bit off. When I was handling the cupcakes, I can feel like how soft the cake is. It's really pillowy and tender, so this is just gonna be a great combination. I love having like the easy cake and the really sort of like special frosting on top. Oh, it looks so good. Smells like carrot cake. Warm spice, brown sugar a little bit, and try to break it open. Not like an excessive amount of frosting on top, but a generous amount. The frosting is so light. I love all the pieces of carrot. Even though they only bake for 20 minutes or so, they've like softened in the oven. Kind of like the perfect bite.
Carrot cake is perfect any time of the year.
Right in the middle of summer. It's really everything that I like about buttercream and everything that I like about cream cheese frosting and none of what I don't like about either. This frosting is perfect for red velvet cake, birthday cake, chocolate cake, wedding cakes, vanilla cake, white cake, and yellow cake. It's more white than your typical Swiss meringue buttercream. It holds its shape. You can bring it outdoors even if it's warm because it's not gonna melt the way that like a sort of simple American buttercream will. I'm so proud of it, and I would be happy if this was the thing that I was known for. So spread the word. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Justora for sponsoring the episode, and don't forget to like and subscribe. The problem with cupcakes is like, it's kind of like taller. Even a small standard size cupcake like this one is sort of taller than the average mouth can go. The trick is break off the bottom part of the cupcake. You put it on top to make like a little sandwich.